Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to our 36th Platform Academy session in this forum. I am very happy to be joined by Ashley today. She's my colleague from our sister team, and we're going to be talking about knowledge management today. As usual, you know this one, please don't make any purchasing decisions based on what we talk about today, but considering that knowledge management has been around since the dawn of ServiceNow time, I'm not sure there will be many forward-looking statements today. Thank you again for joining us. As I said, this is a series. We have a number of platform academies covering topics from Next Experience through mobile, virtual agent, analytics, and other conversational interfaces, process optimization. So we'd love to see you in one of our other academies as well. You can find the schedule and the sign-up links through this QR code, but I also have a slide at the end with the other academies for you to share. And with that, I'll hand it over to, wait, I forgot something. We should introduce ourselves. Oh, goodness. It's been a while. We've had a break for Knowledge, and we've met loads of you at Knowledge, which was really awesome. And I'm really glad I got to meet you all. I almost forgot how this works. So for those who don't know me, my name is Lisa Hohenstein. I'm an outbound product manager and for the Now platform. My focus areas are workflow automation products, that is Flow Designer, Process Automation Designer, Decision Builder. And I also run this Platform Academy. And then we have Ashley.
Hey everyone, so I'm Ashley Snyder. I'm also an outbound product manager. I've been with ServiceNow for about 1.5 years. Previously, I was outbound for Next Experience and Workspaces and Theme Builder. You've seen me on the Next Experience Academy, which I've handed off to my colleague, Maria Gabriella. So she'll be doing a great job taking over that academy. And you're going to see me more on Platform Academy sessions as I cover knowledge management, subscription management, and admin experience. So be looking out for more sessions from me. But today I want to cover knowledge management and best practices. So this will be a 2-part series since we have so much content to cover. Yeah. Like Lisa said, the product's been around for a while. There is a lot to it. These best practices are going to be specific to knowledge management itself. So we're not going to cover processes like case or incident management specifically, but these best practices are meant to really apply across the board when you're using knowledge management in whichever products or processes that you're using. So the agenda does look pretty lean for this topic, but I promise I do have a lot to cover. So in part 1, we're going to touch base on some resources that we have out there for knowledge management. I'm going to walk through what knowledge-centered service or KCS is at a really high level. And then we're going to kind of get into a knowledge management flow or a best practice journey where we're going to have different steps. And I'm going to talk about best practices and capabilities that we have within knowledge management along the way. There will be time for questions and feedback at the end, but I am going to kind of leave some space between the different sections so we can take some Q&A in that Q&A panel as well. If I can't get to your question today, don't worry. We will take them offline and kind of post those in the community with this event afterwards. So before I get started, we do have a poll question for you today. So we'd like to know if your organization is using knowledge-centered service as part of your knowledge management processes. We have a few questions there. So our product team, we have built KCS into the product. I'm going to discuss that in just a second, but we're really wanting to know from our customers kind of what's working for them with KCS, what's not. Do you know about it? Do we need to put more enablement out? And we kind of really need to focus our efforts. So we'll give everyone just a little bit to answer this.
Let a few more people come in. We have about 1/3 who say yes, they're using it, about 1/4 that say no, 1/6 that say we want to start, and almost 30% say I don't know.
Okay, yep, no worries. When I was an admin and a developer, I wasn't specifically focused on knowledge management back then. I saw the acronym KCS, I didn't know what it was. So I get it, and I know we need to put some more videos and enablement out about that. So this is a really great kind of poll and gathering of information, and I'll take that back to my product teams and start kind of developing some more content on the community around that. So before I jump into the best practices in the material, I do want to cover some resources that we have out there for knowledge management. So whether you're just starting your knowledge management journey or you've been using it for some time and you want to roll out new capabilities, we have some resources out there for you. So the first one's going to be Now Learning. We have two main courses out there on Now Learning. We have our fundamentals course, which will walk you through the overview of knowledge management. It will walk you through KCS, as well as the knowledge management lifecycle. We also have an implementation course that we recommend that you use in tandem with guided setup. So that's going to walk you through implementing basic capabilities all the way up to more advanced capabilities. So we do have that guided setup tool built within knowledge management itself. So this is going to provide you a sequence of tasks that you need to do to configure knowledge management on your instance. So you can configure administration, security, and other capabilities. You can assign the tasks to yourself, or you can assign them out to other team members if you're doing this as part of a team. And again, you can use this when you're just starting on knowledge management, or if you have capabilities, let's say you want to roll out something like versioning or knowledge demand insights, you can revisit it to roll out those capabilities as you go. And then the final resource is our knowledge management product hub and discussion groups out on the community. So the product hub is newer. That's where I'm going to be posting things like best practices, getting started materials, capability deep dives, and release updates. There is a forum there for you as well for those questions. And then the discussion group is more of kind of an informal setting if you want to talk to other customers and organizations and knowledge managers about what they're doing, some things that they've implemented, or answer questions for them. We do have that discussion there for you for that kind of more informal chat. All right, so that's a great segue into KCS, or knowledge centered service. So we do recommend using KCS as your methodology for knowledge management in ServiceNow. It is our best practice methodology that's already been integrated into the product. If you want to maximize the benefits of using knowledge management, we do recommend that you start exploring what KCS is and utilizing its specific capabilities. So knowledge-centered service has been developed over the past 20 years by the Consortium for Service Innovation. I'll give you a really high level of what KCS aims to achieve. It wants to enable teams to answer questions quickly, deliver answers where people are looking for them, and train new employees faster. There's some core principles of KCS. The first one is to foster trust amongst all of your knowledge workers and really empower them to take ownership of maintaining and creating articles in the knowledge base. All of the team members should consider the larger value that the knowledge base provides to the entire organization, and not just to the specific tasks that they're working on. Knowledge enables agents to provide quick answers to requesters and callers, and knowledge is acquired through interactions with your callers and your requesters. So articles are generated as a result of resolving issues. And the final principle is fostering a culture of abundance. Sharing knowledge within the organization leads to enhanced learning and benefits for all users within your organization. So at ServiceNow, knowledge management is KCS V6 verified, which is the latest standard of the methodology. And we were actually the first knowledge management product out on the market to receive this verification. One last thing I kind of want to just note here, consider KCS as kind of similar to ITIL. So ITIL is a methodology that we built into our incident, problem, and change products. And when a lot of customers roll out ITSM, they start picking up ITIL methodology and incorporating that in. So when you're thinking about implementing knowledge management or you're improving knowledge management, start looking into KCS and kind of thinking about it in the same way that you would as ITIL.
We have one question already in chat around KCS.
Okay.
Does this in ServiceNow have out-of-the-box articles pre-built that you could use for ServiceNow topics, or do you have to create all the articles that you want to use?
You do have to create the articles that you want to use. We do have a KCS template that you can use that I'll speak to in just a few slides.
All right, thank you.
So let's go over high level, just some benefits of KCS. So the immediate benefits that you're going to see are faster ticket resolution time, improved first call resolution, fewer escalations to other teams, and overall less stress for your agents as they have what they need at their fingertips when they get a call in or an interaction. midterm results, you're going to start seeing more issues resolved via self-service and tier 0 support as you have those knowledge articles out there and your end users can navigate to them easily and solve their own issues. So this just means less cost for support, faster resolution times, and reduced training times for new employees and agents as they're going to have knowledge articles available to them while they're onboarding. And in the long run, your organization is going to benefit by improving products and processes through the knowledge gain from articles. So this feedback helps product teams identify what is working with their products or services and what's not, leading to more proactive issue resolution and automation. All right, awesome. So KCS is a very large topic. I just skimmed the surface on that. We probably will have another session just on KCS alone. And if you are interested, the Consortium for Service Innovations website has a lot of free material out there. You can go ahead and view without having to sign up for a membership or anything. And we do have some great community articles out there as well detailing KCS. So I do want to get into kind of our knowledge management flow and cover the best practices and supporting capabilities that we have. But before we get into our flow, the first best practice is to kind of have our planning process. So whether you're implementing knowledge management for the first time or rolling out new capabilities, it's really important that you take the time to kind of plan and gather your requirements before you go in and start configuring. We do emphasize this in our guided setup tool as well. There's some requirements to take into consideration before you even get started. So just, keeping the end goal in mind and considering what value your organization wants to gain from knowledge management will help you when you kind of go through these key decisions and requirements to gather. So I'll go through just a couple here, but you really want to kind of know ahead of time what the purpose and the scope of your knowledge bases are as far as your functional areas, departments, kind of who your audience is and why they'll be using them. How you're going to implement your knowledge bases. Are you going to do it all at once? Or are you going to do it in waves? What's going to happen after you have new departments on board and they need knowledge bases? What's kind of your process and your flow for that? Any kind of governance as far as like approvals for publishing and retiring, establishing those roles and responsibilities. So knowledge admins, owners, managers, authors, ownership groups, etc. And then any kind of policies and support processes for your knowledge bases that you'll have. Who's going to support, if there's incidents and issues and things like that. And then finally, performance measures. So in part 2, I will speak to out-of-the-box dashboards that we have, but really kind of what are your organizational measures of success as you roll out your knowledge bases? What are you looking to achieve so you can make sure that you're hitting those targets? All right, awesome. So we're going to go on our journey. We are going to cover structure and capture today because we have a bit of content for that. And then in part 2, we'll get to use, improve, and content help. All right, so when implementing or building on top of an existing knowledge base, it's really important to kind of understand and define the structure of your knowledge bases. So let's begin with 3 key factors that you need to consider when you're designing the structure of your knowledge bases. So the first one is going to be findability. This is probably the most important one. So our product can handle any number of knowledge bases. We don't have a technical limit, but it's really important for you to ensure that your users can navigate to your knowledge bases and they're organized in such a way that it makes sense to them, whether they're on a portal or in the classic environment, they can get to the information that they're looking for easily. We do recommend breaking them down by kind of functional area or department to keep things organized, but really it still helps in maintaining that findability as well. The next consideration is permissions. So when it comes to permissions, we do recommend defining them at the knowledge base level rather than for individual articles. Just makes read and contribute permissions easier to maintain for knowledge admins. However, you can establish user criteria permissions at the knowledge article level. So if you need to get a little bit more granular and restrict content within a knowledge base or allow a certain group to contribute to a certain set of articles in a knowledge base, but not the entire knowledge base itself, you can use user criteria to do that. Unless necessary, we don't advise creating separate knowledge bases for end users and agents, as you're going to get a lot of duplicate articles and a lot of duplicate content that's going to need to be maintained. For those scenarios, we do suggest using knowledge blocks, which I'll cover in just a little bit, to restrict content within a shared article for that persona by using user criteria. And then the last key consideration are your approval workflows. So when you create your knowledge base, you normally associate a workflow for publishing and retiring. We have instant workflows and we do have approval workflows. You can use our predefined workflows out of the box, but we do recommend if you need to customize those or configure those to create a copy, and you can do whatever you need to do with those. You can set up, if statements and switch statements and different scripts within those workflows right now to kind of do those more complex approvals. And if you do have kind of more like multi-departmental approvals that are a little bit more complex, this might be a use case for a separate knowledge base, but I would really kind of recommend seeing what you can do with those workflows first. More than likely, your workflow is going to be able to cover most of your use cases, so you don't have to default to just creating another knowledge base for that.
We have one question that might be possible to answer at this point. Is there some good guidance on the difference between knowledge and content? So knowledge management capability versus content publishing, which is a different capability.
Yeah, so content publishing is a capability found in Employee Center. I'm going to speak really high level to Employee Center today. I will say a better answer to that question is the Employee Center Academy, which I was going to plug later. We do have a whole academy session on knowledge management inside of Employee Center that's out there recorded that will answer this question. Awesome. So let's go ahead and kind of cover the hierarchical structure of knowledge bases. Again, you want to kind of design these in such a way that makes content easy for your users to find quickly and easily. So at the top level, we have our knowledge base, and separate knowledge bases allow for the grouping of articles for defined like audiences and functional areas. So IT, CSM, HR, things like that. Nested within your knowledge bases, you'll have your knowledge categories, which group together common articles to help guide users and resolve issues. So categories could be like policies, troubleshooting, just different things like that. I know in IT, you might have software and hardware. So you can actually use categories as search filters as well on your portals. And then within our categories and our knowledge bases, we have our knowledge articles themselves, which are individual items of content that usually cover a specific subject. So, think FAQs, how-tos, policies, and different content like that. And then the last level are our knowledge blocks. So the knowledge blocks are reusable pieces of content that can be added to your knowledge articles. You can kind of see from the graphic that you can have a knowledge block in different articles, and you can even have multiple knowledge blocks within one article itself. So as we kind of walk down our hierarchical structure here, let's go ahead and get into knowledge categorization. I will speak to two features related to categorization. So we do have our knowledge categories that have been around for some time, and they're mainly used in kind of our service portal and our knowledge portal and the classic environment views of knowledge. They help you to arrange articles within a knowledge base, so you can have different kind of parent and child nesting of categories themselves to kind of walk through that structure and structure things. As far as best practices and recommendations, again, we don't place a limit on how many categories you can have technically, but we don't recommend going more than 3 levels deep, as this really kind of impacts that findability of those articles by your end users, and even those who are working in the back end too. So don't go more than 3 levels deep. The less levels you really have, the easier these articles are going to be to find. And avoid being too detailed in those categories too. You can connect categories to topics in Employee Center, which brings me to the next functionality that we have, which is unified taxonomy. So Employee Center does use unified taxonomy. Unified taxonomy is available across multiple entities, so it can be used with service catalog items, knowledge articles, communications, quick links, and more different kind of content types. It does drive the Employee Center user interface, and it kind of allows you to have dynamic topic pages and widgets that focus on specific topics. So our company is gradually moving towards using unified taxonomy. but we still do have categories in unified taxonomy right now. So you do want to use taxonomy when you're organizing content. If you're using Employee Center, or if you're thinking about using Employee Center, you're going to use unified taxonomy for the more of that front end structuring of your knowledge articles to help your employees find what they need. And then you're going to use categories themselves to kind of do the back end structuring. So for your knowledge authors or your domain experts, anyone who's kind of going in and editing articles, that's where really categories is going to come into place to kind of structure that and help them navigate. So you are going to use a combination of both right now. Again, unified taxonomy in the front end, categories on the back end. And they're both necessary. You just need to know when to use each one. And I do have one more slide on this subject that will kind of help to clarify just a little bit more. So we do have a knowledge portal out there right now, and we do have Employee Center. So the knowledge portal, I think it's been around since Kingston timeframe, so it's been out for a little while now. We do suggest using it as more kind of a reference portal for how knowledge can be structured and presented. You can integrate it with the service portal if you'd like. Articles are still structured using categories on that front end. And the search itself is still using that Zing search experience. And search is something I'll get into in part 2, because I know we have some best practices around that. So again, it's meant to be used as a supplemental portal. It's not really meant to be used as a standalone employee portal. For that, we have Employee Center. So since Tokyo, Employee Center has been our recommended portal solution over Service Portal and Knowledge Portal and other portals that we have out there. So it is our best option for employee-facing portals. It does use unified taxonomy to structure not only knowledge articles, but other content types as well. And it's going to use AI search, which is our newer search solution over Zing. Again, I'll kind of go at a high level in part 2 about AI search versus Zing, but AI search does have its own academy out there, another plug. So if you're interested in learning more about AI search and implementing it and tweaking it and getting better search results, check out that AI Search Academy.
One quick question from Mike. Is unified taxonomy linked to the taxonomy feature in the regulatory compliance app, or are those two different functions?
That I don't know. We probably have to get with the Employee Center team. We can get that as a takeaway and find that out and then post it in the Q&A when we post the event.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, awesome. So now that we've covered structuring our knowledge bases and kind of some best practices around that, now we want to move on to capturing our knowledge articles themselves. So knowledge does serve a dual purpose, right? It empowers not only your employees and customers to help themselves in self-service and portals and mobile and other areas, but it also aids agents during their interactions with your callers. So we do have some best practices around kind of what your knowledge content should look like. So the first one, it's really important that your articles reflect the context of what your callers or requesters are calling in about. Kind of using their language. So if you generate articles kind of post interaction, you do risk losing kind of pertinent information about what that interaction was about. And we all do get busy. I've been on the service desk. That article may not even be created at all. So it is important to kind of start using the ability to create knowledge articles during that interaction. That is going to be more of a KCS capability itself. We have a lot of capabilities in knowledge management to help you do that. But overall, it is good to kind of start working that into your process. So capturing that context is really vital in establishing a quality knowledge base. I do have an example here. So, you may have a caller, and instead of calling in and asking why a DNS server is not resolving, they're probably going to ask why they can't navigate to a website. More than likely, they don't even know what a DNS server is. As technical folks, we do know on the back end, and that may be how we write the knowledge article. But you can kind of see how that would get skipped in self-service, and it might even get skipped by other agents who don't know what a DNS server is. So by capturing how a caller would ask about something, we're going to ensure that they can search for it in self-service and other agents who may encounter callers with the same symptoms. If you're using external sources for knowledge, ensure that the content is searchable, maintained, and accessible to the callers. Just like knowledge and ServiceNow, just make sure that they can get to it the same way in that external content. And we do have an external content for AI search plugin too, if you want to start incorporating knowledge from external sources. And I believe they do cover some of that on their community site too, so if you want to go a little bit deeper. So knowledge bases are usually a collaborative effort involving multiple authors. So consistency is really crucial in maintaining that quality knowledge base. To ensure that the correct content is captured in the right format, we do recommend using article templates. We have several out-of-the-box templates that you can use, and our KCS template is really useful as it automatically extracts information from an incident or case and puts it into that knowledge article. So you can see, if you go back to number 1, if you're capturing knowledge articles during the interaction, how this template is going to help you speed up that process. Knowledge blocks, again, we'll get to this in just a few slides, but you want to use knowledge blocks to prevent duplicate articles that might have slight variations in content based upon audiences. And then just the last one, when you're rolling out new services, I know documentation and knowledge can kind of be tacked on to the end, but you want to make sure that your end users have knowledge articles in self-service and your agents have those knowledge articles available to them right when you launch your service. That way you can kind of deflect a lot of those things coming in during early life support and just give everyone the information that they need when that service launches. All right, so let's get a little bit deeper into kind of some article content best practices. So the first one, you want to keep your language clear and concise. You want to improve the user experience and use that user-centered language. Just going back to that DNS server won't resolve kind of example, that's just not a really great example of user-centered language. They're not going to be able to search for that. The next one is to add screenshots or videos for your readers to follow along. But with this, keep search in mind. You don't want to take a screenshot of text or a screenshot of steps and put that in, because then you're impacting your search results. Folks can't search within the screenshots themselves. When possible, keep your articles short and digestible. They are really meant to resolve a certain issue or symptom. They're not a technical deep dive. They're not an essay. You want your users to be able to identify the issue that they're having and the steps they need to take to resolve that really easily. And then also use clear and action-based titles. So again, think about search, think about that DNS server example. The title in that case would probably be like, cannot navigate to a website. Rather than DNS server won't resolve. And just kind of think about search. And we'll get into search a little bit more as far as how you can improve your articles with search queries in the improve section in part 2. You want to define any kind of terms or acronyms that you're using. Don't assume that your end users know what those are. And also to add search phrases to articles too. And you can kind of see what's being queried by your users, and we'll cover that more in part 2. If you do have articles that are relevant to each other, you know, they are solving different issues, but they do have some kind of relevancy. You can link articles to show those relationships. And then the last one is to kind of add context about why or when someone would take the steps in the articles. Don't be afraid to use examples, really anything that's going to help your end users solve the issue themselves, or even agents solve the issue for them. The more information that they have that's clear and concise, the better for them. Diving deeper into article content. So, you know, we have a knowledge base. We're going to have multiple authors in that knowledge base. How can we make sure that the articles have the right information and are following our formatting rules? To solve this, we recommend using article templates. So article templates have been out for a little while now. They do have predefined fields that you can use in specific orders to capture the right information and really provide that consistent structure for your knowledge content. You can use different field types in knowledge article templates. So we have like date, integer, string, HTML. So you don't have to put everything in just a rich text kind of body field itself. You can utilize those different field types. And administrators can set field level security in templates to show them to only certain employees if they need to. So you do have that flexibility in kind of administering those. And templates themselves, they are really flexible. You can choose which ones you want to use for different knowledge bases, and you can choose which fields you want to go into those templates. You can create your own. In the slide here, I kind of just have a quick overview of the ones that we have out there out of the box and what you can expect to see from them. But you can be really flexible with article templates and use them however your organization needs to use them. Sorry, let me go back. I do see we have a question there as far as best practices for importing existing knowledge articles. This is really going to depend on where the source is coming from. So like I mentioned, if you have external knowledge articles and you just want to search them, you can use AI search. We do have an import feature for Microsoft Word that's out there that you can use. I know that there's different partners out there that will assist in importing from SharePoint and things like that. So this would be a good question to put on the product hub, and we can kind of take a look at it after, but it's going to vary depending on where your knowledge is coming from. Can we use article templates while importing knowledge articles? I don't believe the Microsoft Word functionality has that. I can circle back around to that to see. I know there are some limitations when we're using the Word plugins and things like that, but I'll take that offline and we'll answer it on the community after this. So let's get into knowledge blocks. So again, like I mentioned, knowledge blocks are really there for reusable content that you can use in multiple knowledge articles, or content that really just kind of applies to a certain audience within an article. So, you can think about using knowledge blocks if you have like policies like travel policies or retirement policies, anything that might be like location or group specific, but the rest of the article itself pertains to multiple audiences or the wider audience. Another good use case is that end user agent scenario, where most of the article end users are okay to see, but then you do have some internal notes for your agents. You can use a knowledge block for this instead of creating a duplicate article. I've spoken to some customers who have used knowledge blocks in different ways. They've gotten creative with it, depending on what they needed to do. So I would suggest kind of going through your knowledge base, seeing kind of what duplicate articles that you may have out there and seeing if knowledge blocks can help you condense some of those articles out there. Just because when your end users are searching for those articles, they may be a little bit confused on as to why there's similar articles out there that have varying content. This slide is just a really great visual over here just to kind of see the differences in knowledge blocks. So over on the left, I kind of have a developer persona, and on the right, I have a manager persona. You can kind of see we have the same knowledge article here, but they're seeing different management level content based upon their role.
Do you know if these are supported in translated knowledge articles as well? So
yeah.
Can you create a translation for a knowledge block?
Yes, you can.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot of great things out there with translation too. I know in Tokyo, I think we have a video out there. I know there's an article out on the product hub about like translating multiple articles all at once. We've done a lot with translation recently.
Yeah, we also have another academy. I'll put that in chat as well. About platform internationalization with the director for that area. So if you want more info, you can check that one out.
Cool. All right. So you may be wondering when to use templates versus knowledge blocks. I do have some guidance on that. So to kind of revisit templates, they really assist you with having that structure and that readability and that consistency for your articles within a knowledge base. So they provide those guidelines, and when you're going to select a template, you can see some preview text of what that article will look like. You can use templates to set CSS and field styles. So if you have some CSS formatting that you want to put in there, you can. And they also handle that basic field level security that you can use as well. So admins can kind of control the security for all articles that use a template. And another cool thing is that templates will help you generate SEO. So if you have public articles out there and you're unsure what SEO to generate, you can actually use a template field value to help you in generating that SEO. So knowledge blocks, again, reusable content based upon location or group or kind of user criteria. So really, you should use both. You don't have to use both all the time. You should definitely be using article templates when you create knowledge articles, but you may not always have a need for a knowledge block within that template. That's going to be kind of on a use case basis. But you can use both. It's not really one versus the other.
So a question around knowledge blocks, can they be used to have an article be both service desk facing and facing public facing, user facing at the same time? It sounds to me like that's one of the purposes for knowledge blocks.
Yeah, because so you can put like
Yes.
the user criteria, you can get as granular as you need to, but you could strip down that knowledge block to only be visible to something like ITIL, while the rest of the article itself is, public or viewable to SNC external, however you got that, the user criteria on there.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so the last capability I want to discuss in part one are ownership groups. So, when you're authoring an article, there is a set of responsibilities that a knowledge author has to assume, such as any kind of approval workflows for publishing and retiring, as well as managing feedback tasks if you're using actionable feedback, which I'll cover in part two. We do recommend using ownership groups as a best practice to share those responsibilities. When you use ownership groups, you are, dispersing the approvals, the retirement, and the feedback task amongst a group instead of one individual. And there is that risk that occurs if you have one knowledge author on an article, right? If they transfer roles or departments within the company, or they leave the company itself, you do have to kind of go back and manage that knowledge article to make sure it's being maintained efficiently. If you use an ownership group, you're just removing them from the group, and other group members will assume responsibility for that article itself. So again, just kind of using group management as a best practice within your knowledge articles themselves. All right, so key takeaways from this, just really looking at KCS if you're not using it already, exploring more about that, focusing on findability when you're designing your knowledge bases in your categories, using article templates for consistency and readability, using knowledge blocks to prevent duplicate content, and using ownership groups to delegate responsibilities are kind of the 5 things I want you to take away from this at a really high level. Next time, I think sometime in July, we're going to get into knowledge management part 2. So we're going to cover use, improve, and in content health in that. So we'll have another great session out there for you full of that information.
There's one I already answered in the Q&A panel, just real quick. Mark was asking when workflows on knowledge bases are being replaced with flows instead. And I believe we're working on that, but we don't have a time frame to announce just now. But it's definitely
it is on the roadmap. I can say, at a high level, safe harbor roadmap, right? Generative AI, right? We had a lot of things on our roadmap last quarter, and then generative AI kind of turned everyone on their head. So I can say for our roadmap, our teams are really kind of planning and looking at generative AI quite heavily right now, and how we can make like the article creation process a lot more streamlined, using generative AI to help you kind of edit articles and suggest content. But we haven't forgotten about those flows. I know I haven't. I was just thinking about it the other day. I was like, I really want to get flows in here and like decision builder and things like that. But it is on our roadmap.
Yes. Then there's another question, or maybe a question for another decision. If there's outside of ownership groups and maybe other things, is there a method to incorporate dynamic content from the platform? So one of the questions is showing a reference user group in a KB article, for example.
Yeah, I get what that's saying. You want to it's kind of like the same, like if you're using like a notification, right? That kind of mail script method where you can use those JavaScript methods. I know that the Tiny MCE editor doesn't support that, but this is a good takeaway that I'll take back to our product teams.
More questions. With the versioning of knowledge articles, attachments are copied to the newer version. We have a lot of versions. There will be a lot of attachments. Is there a suggestion to maintain that? So
That
maybe
is a good question, because I can see it going both ways, right? Because that attachment could be different on a previous version versus that new version. And now we're kind of getting into the topic of managing attachments themselves. I don't think we have any capability in the platform built into managing these. But I will take this back and see if I can find some good best practices around it. I'm assuming right now all you can do is remove them. But let me poke at that for the next session, and I can see if we can put it in the use section of that.
there's another question that is coming in through chat. Can you talk about NLU and knowledge, especially for the tech terms being the gap between an end user and IT language? So NLU in that case, meaning virtual agent conversations and how to find the right knowledge articles.
Yeah, I will say best practice, use AI search, right? Zing search isn't going to support that very well because it has a lot of maintenance. But I will speak to AI search just at a really high level. But if you're really kind of getting into how to like use this in virtual agent and AI search as well, probably head over to their academy and their community site to look for that information.
There are no more questions right now.
Cool. If you do think of questions after this and are planning on joining part 2, feel free to bring them or ask them on the Knowledge Management Product Hub, and we'll get to them there.
I can see one more question coming in though.
Okay.
Looking at knowledge from a user self-help perspective, exploring to self-train ServiceNow to auto-resolve issues using steps. Is that a possibility? Have you heard that?
From kind of the employee center perspective, I can't speak for them and what they are doing as far as generative AI on their end. I'm sure they are. I know for the workspace perspective that we are looking into generative AI in workspaces and kind of tying in how we can use that to assist users to resolve issues. And I'm sure that knowledge articles will be part of that. I would say for this question, keep an eye out for more content around Q3, Q4.
Awesome. Can knowledge articles be exported from ServiceNow to PDF to share knowledge with other groups within the organization?
You can export knowledge articles. I will put an asterisk next to that, in that when you get into exporting articles and PDFs and things like that, you do lose kind of the relevancy of the knowledge article because you may have old content floating out there. So it's best to kind of keep it in a repository that is up to date and maintained, whether it's ServiceNow or an external repository itself.
It is kind of the similar thing with sending out reports. It's better to have a dashboard and the right permissions to share the reports with people so that they have current and up-to-date data and don't work with out-of-date data. And the same goes for knowledge.
Yeah.
Awesome. So with that, this slide, let's do a little quick wrap up. As I mentioned before, we have a bunch of other academies. My other Outbound colleagues are running different series about AI. Conversational Interface is the academy that covers virtual agent as well. We have academies for platform analytics, mobile, next experience, and as we had the AI Search Academy as well. Would love to see you in those sessions too. We're starting to do some more crossover academies as well, because a lot of those products work well together. And I think those are most of the slides. Do I have anyone? Oh, thank you. Awesome. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Ashley, for joining me today and speaking about knowledge management. I'll see you again on July the 20th. I will have another session, as I said, in 2 weeks with Eliza Orchard, and we will be speaking about Service Portal. Where is that going? Because I'm sure a lot of you have questions about that. We are also having another session early July, and then we'll get back into knowledge. I want to encourage y'all to check out the backlog of sessions that we also have for this Platform Academy series. We recently did some awesome sessions with Andrew Barnes and Julia Perlis about Flow Designer approvals, Decision Builder. There's loads of great content out there already for the other platform topics like ATF and instance scan. And as I said, internationalization, specifically covering also translation tasks and the whole framework for translating and localizing your ServiceNow platform. That one was a really, really useful session, I think. And with that, I will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.